1. In Tuscaloosa, Alabama, stands the restored Drish House, a stately home that now holds a spot on the National Register of Historic Places. However, the Drish House has not always been a priority for preservation. In fact, the Drish House has changed hands many times since the tragic deaths of its original owners, and some think this has to do with the tales of its haunting. Built over the course of 2 years, starting in 1837, the Drish House belonged to slave owner John Drish and his wife Sarah. The marriage was a second for both of them. Their first spouses had both died, and Sarah's husband had left her quite wealthy. Drish's slaves were instrumental in the building of their new home, and much of its rich architecture can be attributed to their work. In 1867, tragedy struck. Drish, an alleged alcoholic, was said to be sobering up after a night of drinking when he got the shakes and, in a hallucinatory state, ran across a hallway and threw himself from the upstairs balcony, killing himself upon impact at the bottom of the stairs. Sarah, now a widow twice over, was devastated. Drish had left elaborate burial requests for his funeral, and she ensured that these were carried out to the letter. After his death, however, the widow became obsessed with her grief. Sarah insisted that when she died, she was to have the exact treatment as her husband. She even saved the candles that had been used at his wake, so that they might burn at her funeral. Yet, when Sarah did die in 1884, she had hidden the candles so well that no one could find them and honor her dying wish. Many see this failure to carry out a mournful woman's final request as the spark that ignited the Drish House hauntings. Not long after Sarah's death, a local was alarmed to discover a fire burning in the front tower of the home. An emergency call was made, yet when responders arrived, no fire burned. These phantom fire sightings happened repeatedly. Some surmise that it was Sarah's spirit lingering in the tower that set the space ablaze. Angered or disappointed that her husband's candles had not been burned at her own funeral. The house changed ownership multiple times in the ensuing years. The building was used as apartments during Tuscaloosa's population expansion, as a school owned by the Tuscaloosa Board of Education, as a wrecking company, and as a church, during which time an adjacent structure was built to house various Sunday school classes. These transitions brought the house into the late 20th century. When the church finally closed in 1995 for financial reasons, the old Drish House slipped into abandonment and was eventually condemned by the city. Two. The Red Lady of Huntington College in Montgomery has changed somewhat over the centuries. What was once a benevolent yet inquisitive lady in red, who quietly roamed a residence hall, transformed over the years to a rather vindictive apparition who evokes fear and apprehension from those she visits. The story began when Huntington College was located in Tuskegee, where the school was chartered and established as Tuskegee Women's College in 1854. One night, after lights out, the girls on the upper floor of the residence hall Sky Alley, noticed a glowing red light emerging through the cracks under their doors. The curious dorm residents peeked from their doorways to witness an ethereal lady in an exquisite red gown, carrying a red parasol, gliding up and down the corridor. The apparition radiated a red light and seemed oblivious to the onlookers. She maintained a forward stare and continued her patrol of the hallway until daybreak. The terrified students were never again quite at ease as night fell each evening, never sure if the ghost would return. She never did, however, and there was never any satisfactory explanation for her appearance. When the campus was relocated to Montgomery in 1910, the school was renamed the Women's College of Alabama. The Red Lady was a thing of the past, left behind with the building she haunted in Tuskegee. Until, that is, a young girl called Martha by some, or Margaret by others, moved to campus. Martha was born to a wealthy family in New York. Her parents were both natives of Alabama, and Martha's father left specific instructions in his will that Martha was to attend his mother's alma mater of Huntington, which had been located in Tuskegee at the time. So, while she did not want to leave her New York home, Martha complied with the wishes of her father, feeling she had no other choice. Martha's arrival on campus drew immediate notice from her fellow classmates, as she had a particular fondness for the color red, which she displayed proudly in everything from her choice of clothing to the decor in her fourth-floor room in Pratt Hall. Her bedspread, her rug, and even her accessories were all red. Always an outsider on campus, Martha did not make friends easily. Some might even say she actively discouraged her classmates whenever they attempted to befriend her. She was, after all, a New Yorker at heart, and she was not ready to call Alabama home. She also was a shy girl, and some, having heard she was wealthy, could easily have mistaken her shyness for disdain. So, whatever the reason, she was a very unhappy girl with no friends on campus. Her sullen, cool demeanor made it hard for her to keep roommates. Her gloom seemed to permeate the room, dissuading anyone with an inclination to stay. As the weeks passed, and no roommate for Martha could be found, the president of Pratt Hall agreed to give it a try. After a concerted effort to befriend the lonely girl, she too was overwhelmed by the morose atmosphere and decided to leave before she too became despondent. Martha entered the room just as the president was preparing to leave. Overcome by the rejection of the only friend she believed she had on campus, Martha bitterly warned her that she would regret her decision to move out. Soon, no one in Pratt Hall could stand to be in the same room with Martha. Her presence seemed to cast a chill upon the room, and anyone there would soon find an excuse to leave. Feeling alienated, Martha retreated to her room, cloaking herself in her red bedspread as if to shut out the rest of the world. The intense isolation seemed to drive Martha from the melancholy to the bizarre, if not frightening. She began roaming the dormitory hall after lights out, randomly opening doors of her hallmates, casting blank stares into their rooms, and patrolling the hall as if in a trance. One evening, after Martha had failed to attend any of her classes and had not been seen at any meals, her former roommate and dorm president decided to check on her. As she neared the girl's room at the end of the corridor, she noticed a strange red glow emanating from Martha's room. Upon opening the door, she found Martha, dressed in a red robe and cloaked in her red bedspread, lying on the floor in a pool of blood. Martha had slashed her wrists. To this day, it is said that Martha remains on the 4th floor of Pratt Hall. Generations of Huntington students have claimed to have witnessed the ghostly Red Lady making her way up and down the hall. Students claim that on the anniversary of Martha's death, the spooky activities seem to increase. Her ghost always appears on that night, and the strange red light glows from her former room, although the building is no longer a dormitory. So why would Martha choose to remain in residence at a place that brought her such sorrow? Some have speculated that she is there to warn students of the potential harm their mistreatment or rejection of others can have. Others wonder if the Red Lady at Tuskegee foreshadowed Martha's arrival on the Montgomery campus. We will never know, but the uncertainty will not diminish the impact she has on current and future students on campus. Huntington has no records to confirm the story, yet the legend of the Red Lady has become one of the most famous in the state. If you would like to visit Pratt Hall and perhaps catch a glimpse of the lady herself, the building is located at the center of campus, adjacent to Flowers Hall. Three. Imagine a family riding past an old dirt road in a horse-drawn buggy in the late 1800s. As the family begins to pass the dirt road, a cold chill seems to pass through the family. The horses begin to stir and act panicked. Finally, the faint sound of a fiddle begins to play as the sounds of dancing can be heard rustling in the distance. Those are some of the claims that many Coffee County residents have made for decades about the supposed haunted resting place of William Granser Harrison of Kinston. The occurrences seem to be more frequent on Saturday nights, which holds great significance to Harrison. Those stories and the legacy of Harrison only grew when famed Alabama writer Catherine Wyndham Tucker released her 1969 book, 13 Alabama Ghosts and Jeffrey, which closed with the story of Harrison Cemetery. Generations of children grew up reading and hearing the story of Harrison, and the children of Coffee County could not only hear the stories, they could visit the tomb. Harrison was a well-known plantation owner in Coffee County, having migrated from South Carolina to what is now the Kinston area in the 1830s, and even more well-known for his dance parties, which took place on Saturday nights. Harrison's dances would grow so large that he had his slaves build a dance hall to host them. And every Saturday he would invite the people of neighboring counties to attend these lively events. As Harrison grew older, he informed his family that he wanted to be buried just yards away from his dance hall, and even had a tomb erected before his passing, with a beautiful pavilion built surrounding it. According to Wyndham Tucker's book, Harrison gave explicit instructions on his burial. Harrison wanted to be buried in his dancing clothes and shoes, and he wanted to be placed inside his tomb in his feathered bed. He also had one last request, "The dancing must go on in my dance hall," Harrison instructed. For some time after Harrison's passing, the dances continued, but eventually they stopped, as the events were no longer as fun or lively without Harrison there to lead them. Not long after the dances stopped, people of Coffee County and neighboring counties began reporting the sound of fiddles being played, and even the sound of clogs dancing on a dance floor with a swirl of wind coming from Harrison's tomb. These stories only grew and intensified over the years, and eventually more urban legends began to pop up, including one that claimed Harrison had his fortune buried with him. Vandals used dynamite in the 1960s to open up Harrison's tomb, and in the process scattered his skeletal remains. The tomb was rebuilt, in the shape of a bed no less, but over the years it has been vandalized numerous times as each generation seems to want to discover Harrison's non-existent fortune residing in the tomb. As a result of the desecration of Harrison's tomb over and over, the dirt road leading to the cemetery is closed and off limits to the public after sundown. Neither the dance hall nor Harrison's home are left standing, and at the old cemetery, only the skeletal remains of an old church remain among the countless tombstones. Still, on Saturday nights, the legend is that the sounds of Harrison's fiddle and dancing, possibly even accompanied by the sounds of a man calling out dances, continue to be heard. Hello my lovelies, thank you for watching another video on the Abysmal channel. I'm so excited to continue posting and I'm really enjoying this. Thank you all for tuning in and I hope to see you again soon. Have a wonderful day.